Howdy folks, welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory and today is Sunday, August the 5th, 2018. And I have one of my favorite authors out there. He does great analysis, incredible research, and he typically goes against the grain of what a lot of people in the alternative media write about. He sees things differently, and as a matter of fact, he sees things from a more realistic perspective because he listens to and watches what the globalists say and what they do, and he aligns the two. And I'm speaking about the founder and publisher of Alt-Market, Mr. Brandon Smith. Brandon, welcome back to the Daily Coin.
Hi, Rory. Glad to be on the show.
That the powers that be deliver, and you take their word at face value, that's rare in today's so-called alternative media. And how difficult is that? How difficult does that make it for you, Brandon, to present information, or does that make it easier? I mean, if they're telling you what they're going to do, I would think that would make it easier, but how does that play into your analysis?
Well, I suppose it makes part of my job easier because I know exactly where to look for the signals of the next shift in either, politics, geopolitics, or the economy in general. I kind of know where we're headed. As far as the timing, it's more difficult because they never really unveil their timeline. It's every once in a while you'll see them do it. You'll see them sort of give away a frame of reference as far as timing, but generally they don't. And so all I can do really is point out that this is the trend that they're creating, and this is the plan and the goal that they intend to follow. And then as far as timing, it's generally I'm about, I would say, 6 months to 8 months behind their actual time frame. So I'll predict something, and about 6 months later, it will happen, and the prediction will just be based on their own white papers and their own press releases and things like that. As far as difficulty in that strategy, I find I get more resistance actually from other alternative media people and people in the liberty movement in general. They tend to not want to believe that the bankers will do exactly what they say they're going to do. It's strange. There's a lot of people in the movement, I wouldn't say a majority, but a good portion of the movement that they just refuse to accept that, for example, that the Fed or the Federal Reserve is going to deliberately bring down the U.S. economy. They don't want to do that, even though that's exactly what the new chairman, Jerome Powell, said they would do way back in 2012. So, and now that was before he was chairman. Now he's chairman, and he's carrying out all the steps that he discussed in 2012. People still don't want to believe it. So I get more resistance from the liberty movement than anywhere else on this.
Now, you said that typically the trends that you'll write about something or discuss something or predict something, and 6, 8 months, maybe even a year out, it starts happening. And the piece that you just wrote today, that you published today, and we're recording on Wednesday, August the 1st, 2018, and the title is Conservatives Banned from Social Media, ? And here's what they can do about it. And is what we're seeing with Trump coming out and discussing shadow banning. Was all of this what we're seeing today? Was it born in the riots and the destruction that Black Lives Matter instigated a year and a half, 2 years ago? or the riots in Berkeley and various other cities that were started by Antifa and the so-called anti-fascist. How is that? Are these two connected, or am I grabbing at straws here?
Well, I think that what this really is, as far as the marginalization of conservatives in social media, I think what it's really about is globalist, CEOs who are globalists, first and foremost.
Yes.
Maybe leftists in a secondary fashion, but globalists first and foremost. I think this is them exploiting leftist zealotry to achieve a reaction from conservatives, a negative reaction from conservatives. And I outline that in the article. All is not what it seems. Now, there are plenty of leftists out there that would love to silence conservatives or completely remove them from social media and in media spaces in general. It's sort of one of their primary bastions of leftist ideology, hardcore leftist ideology, is the media. They've put a lot of their energy and focus into dominating media spaces, and now they see that they're losing those spaces. I think that they were so for 8 years or so, they were maybe even more. They were so used to dominating those spaces and not having any competition that as things change today, it's shocking to them, and they're reacting very viciously. They don't like they like the way that things were in the past. They like that comfortable zone of almost never having conservatives around, and when conservatives show up, you attack them with a mob and then they run away. That's not happening anymore. Now, but what's the real issue here, though, is not so much left versus right, but globalists exploiting the left versus right paradigm. My theory is that, people like Zuckerberg, people like Bezos and others, they're globalists first, and what they're attempting to do is follow a particular Alinsky tactic, which is to elicit a highly negative or violent response from your opponent through harassment. So by booting out conservatives, incrementally from social media spaces, I think what they're hoping to do is get conservatives who, now we supposedly have control of government. They're trying to get us to use government in a way that goes against our principles, meaning exploit big government to try to control private websites, things like that. And in doing that, we might win the short-term battle over control of social media, but we lose the long-term battle over principle.
I think that what I would like to see, and this may go against what you just said, it may be fueling exactly what you just said. I would like to see all of us, conservatives, people in the liberty movement, band together and bring about a class action lawsuit. I've been calling for this since December because of what the big four, the cartel of information being Google, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, those four cartel control most, if not all, of the information on the internet. Now, you make an argument in your article about us moving away from these big four criminals and their hatred of the First Amendment, because that's what it boils down to for me anyway. From my perspective, that's what it comes down to, is an absolute disdain for the First Amendment. You're welcome to free speech as long as I approve. That's it. That's what it comes down to. And the platforms that I'm utilizing at this point are VK.com, which is a Facebook alternative. I utilize Gab.ai, which is a Twitter alternative. I utilize Real.video, which is a YouTube alternative. And those three have almost no audience because the people that are listening to this video right now, a majority of them are going to listen to it on YouTube and support that platform when it's posted clearly on my channel on Real.video, and people have the alternative to go over there. They don't. This is the problem. This is why I want to bring about a class action lawsuit. Or does that feed into the whole fire of what you were saying?
Well, as far as the lawsuit idea, that's completely understandable that people like yourself would want to pursue that, because there is, as you said, a monopoly over social media spaces. So, a lot of people will see that as the only avenue to try to change the situation. The only problem that I would point out with that tactic is that it could ultimately be flipped on smaller media websites and alternative media websites. So, for example, say we successfully set precedent, we sue Facebook or whatever, and we successfully set a legal precedent that Facebook has to accept anyone commenting on their forums no matter what. They're not allowed to boot them off for any reason, political or otherwise. What happens when that's flipped on the alternative media? Now, I get crazy leftist trolls on my website every day, and sometimes I have to kick them off if they're just trying to disrupt discussion and create a problem. Sometimes you have to boot people off, and I don't want to be held legally liable for that. It's my website. It's a private. It's private property. I own it. It's my private space. And if someone is there creating a problem, then I want the option to remove them so that people can have a real discussion about real information. Now, if we're going to hold that true to our own websites, then we would have to hold it true to any other website. Once we start down that road, even with the bigger companies, we open the door for that to be used against us. Now, there is the problem of, as you pointed out, of monopoly. And I do think that because a lot of these corporations receive either government subsidy, massive government tax breaks to the point where they don't have to, they barely pay taxes. Facebook, for example, for years barely paid any taxes on billions of dollars in profit. They also receive protection through limited liability. A lot of these companies receive protection from certain kinds of lawsuits. That sort of thing gives them an unfair advantage because they're working so closely with government and they're receiving protection and basically capital from government. Now, that's not okay. And I'm a huge proponent of breaking up monopolies or just removing the whole concept of corporate personhood and a limited liability completely, and forcing all corporations to reorganize as partnerships. That would make them more susceptible to criminal prosecution and also lawsuits. I'm okay with that. I'm just not okay with using big government or setting legal precedent into forcing a company with private property into either making it public property or following particular rules of association.
Now I'm going to have to go back and find it, but there's a video where there's a gentleman that I believe it was on Reason .tv that was published a couple of years ago where he was talking about exactly that. And there was a case in California where there was a group that wanted to protest on private property, physically there, sign carrying, marching, so forth. And the property owner said, can't do that here, private property, get off. They sued him. First Amendment won. The property owner said was so the precedent's already been set. And I'll have a link to it in the description below, and I'll send it to you, Brandon, when we get done with this interview. But that the precedent's already been set as far as private property versus the First Amendment. They don't that doesn't matter.
Well, sure, I would, I've seen cases like that in the past, and I think I think it sets a negative precedent, because where does it stop? Can someone walk into your private residence? Can they walk into your home and protest you there? Can they picket? Can they picket your front door, or can they walk into your house and trash your house? And can they walk into your house and just yell at you and call you names?
Well, we're seeing that happen. We're seeing that play out in real time as far as what happened to Sarah Huckabee in the restaurant, and several people, and Maxine Waters calling for mob rule wherever people are, quote, wherever they're at, gather a mob and push back, So all of these things are playing out right now in real time. As far as what you're saying, they haven't gone into people's homes, but they have protested outside of their home. And so these issues are, the envelope is being pushed right now, the boundaries.
Absolutely, and that is a very common behavior for leftists, for social justice lunatics. It's not something I feel should be adapted by conservatives. If we want to stick by our principles, it's not a tactic that I think we should adopt. We shouldn't become the monster to defeat the monster is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, and believe me, I am not condoning, I don't support that at all. I'm just saying that, I'm just pointing out that it is actually happening, what you were saying. They're not actually invading someone's, private residence, but they are in public places and on sidewalks and all of these other things. I agree. That is not what we need to become at all. We need to be the exact opposite, and take and be civil about what we're doing. Go about it utilizing the rule of law, which is what is missing throughout this conversation. As far as what is that's the missing element in what we're discussing, is the rule of law. I mean, if we were following the rule of law, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Or am I wrong?
Right. Well, again, I would reiterate that companies like Facebook, these websites, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they remain private property. They are not a public utility. And the second we try to make them into a public utility, then we open the door to nationalization of a lot of private property. That's what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is conservatives trying to, now that they have the use of government as a weapon, that they'll try to use it as a weapon. And that's what I'm worried about, that they'll set regulations controlling, private property that will come back to bite them, on the ass later. That's what I'm worried about.
It very well could.
So there are other solutions beyond trying to either nationalize private websites and turn them into public utilities, or trying to force them into associations that they don't agree with. I believe there's other methods. One of them is to break up the monopolies, break them up, because they are corporate monopolies. They are receiving a number of benefits from government. Therefore, it should be perfectly legal for government to break them up. Since government basically created these monsters, government should be able to break them apart. The other solution that I would promote is alternative, an alternative Facebook. A conservative Facebook, a conservative Twitter, a conservative YouTube, and as you said, some people have attempted this, and they're having a hard time with it. So I think you have to pursue different tracks. You have to pursue the breakup of these monopolies, and you have to pursue alternative websites that will be neutral or conservative, open to conservative ideas.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I didn't say that they were having a hard time. I said that their audiences aren't as large. I mean, when you're talking about Facebook and 2 billion users, that's China and India. This is a massive situation. This is it's the largest nation on the planet, period, by leaps and bounds. But the alternatives that I'd mentioned earlier, VK.com, Gab.ai, and Real.video, all 3 of those, which I am on, they are growing. Make no mistake about that. These are alternatives to these corporate ghettos, and it's back to the Wild West, for lack of a better term. I mean, you're welcome to free speech is alive and well, but they've learned that, by I've got a channel in each one of these platforms, and I have those controls like what you were talking about, Brandon, as far as, I've got somebody on here that's disrupting what's going on, then I have the ability to get rid of them or block them. But outside of my channel, anything goes. You're welcome to say and post, publish whatever you would like. Does that make sense?
Sure, absolutely. And that's what I'm seeing actually, is I'm seeing quite a bit of drawdown in the customer base for a lot of these companies. So Facebook is bleeding users and has been for the past couple of years. Twitter, I'm not so sure they're bleeding as much as Facebook, but they are losing customers quite a bit. YouTube is one of the only, I guess, offending media spaces that seems to be maintaining a lot of users. The problem is they've been cracking down on ad revenue for a lot of conservative media producers. Yep. So they're going to be losing all those guys along with a lot of their audience, and it takes time. Over time, yes, I think you will start to see a shift away from Facebook, away from YouTube and others, into other, because really that's how the free market works. If people aren't getting what they want or need from one source, from one media source, they're eventually going to go somewhere else. And then when you all we have to do is provide the option. We have to provide the alternative, and they will show up eventually.
Yeah, and then that's what's happening right now. I agree wholeheartedly. There is a shift, and it does take time. I'm just hoping that the people will. I want them to move quicker. That's all that I'm asking. Is that because the quicker that we can starve these monsters of revenue, then the quicker that they go away quite naturally, and the free market, rises to the occasion. And that's what needs to happen, because the free market is king. If the free market is allowed to do its part and get rid of the government subsidies, stop using my tax dollars, my labor to fund Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Google, stop doing that. That's part of what I'm asking, because I agree. If you go on YouTube right now and look up a video that's produced by RT or Russia Today, there's a little propaganda piece that says that this channel is funded in whole or in part by the Russian government. But they don't do that for ABC or CBS or CNN or Google or YouTube or any of the others, and it's the exact same thing, right? I mean, if they're taking my labor, my tax dollars, and giving them to one of these entities, then government is funding them, or am I missing something? Well, that concludes part one of this in-depth interview with Brandon Smith. And if you'll click the screen on YouTube, right there where it says part two is available. And if you're on Reel.video, you'll just have to go to the part two video. Thank you very much, and we certainly appreciate you sticking around.